Hey, I want to let you guys know something that happened to me back in February of this year, 2016. I was praying for refinement one day. I was praying to the Lord for refinement because this prophecy came out among myself and some brethren, told us to pray for refinement. So I started praying for refinement, and then as I was just walking up and down praying this day, all of a sudden the presence of the Lord came on me, and it knocked me to the floor. And I just fell to the floor, and I was just praying, and all of a sudden as I was praying and just waiting for what the Lord was going to do, all of a sudden I just started getting all these flashbacks, like remembering just moments, certain moments in time where I'd been inconsiderate or said things I shouldn't have said. And I had this attitude that where I was like, my heart was hardened towards people who were in sin, especially Christians, and I didn't realize that I had this attitude and it was wrong. It wasn't the compassion of the Lord. It wasn't the heart of the Lord. And it was crazy because all these flashbacks that I was getting revolved around this attitude that I had about people in sin. I just had this really low tolerance for people who were in sin, especially Christians, like I said. And so the Lord was showing me all these memories, and I was under heavy conviction. So I thanked the Lord, but I felt really remorseful, and I felt just really bad about realizing that my attitude had been wrong all this time. Because when I came out of church, the Lord pulled me out of church, I left with a lot of soul wounds and bitterness, and I felt really disillusioned by the hypocrisy that I'd seen. And so bringing all this back to me, I realized that I left with a wrong attitude, and I needed to get healed of that. And when I looked at people, I needed to call up the compassion of the Lord and the heart of the Lord when I saw them, because I didn't have very much sympathy for people's situations. If I saw they were in sin, my attitude was kind of like, well, why don't you just stop sinning already? Why don't you just stop? And I didn't really have much compassion or sympathy or understanding for their situation. So the next day I was praying again, and same thing happened. As I was praying, just praying for further refinement, and for further understanding, all of a sudden, the presence of the Lord comes on me again. I fall to the floor. I'm just praising and worshiping the Lord, thanking Him, and waiting to see what He's going to do. And then as I was laying there just praying, all of a sudden I felt something click in my heart, like something just shifted, like something just clicked, where all of a sudden I felt this wellspring of compassion well up in me, and I felt like healed. I felt like this backlog of just sewage, just filthy attitudes, just all got cleansed out of me. And when I got up from that, I felt so different. I felt full of compassion, just understanding. I didn't feel embittered anymore. Now, every time I saw someone in sin, especially Christians, my heart of the matter was just to get down on their eye level with them and just say, like, hey, the Lord really wants to help you and teach you what to do, rather than just pointing fingers and stuff, which was my attitude before. And it wasn't like I had no compassion before. It was a subtle attitude, attitude that was corrupted. It wasn't like I was completely without compassion, but there was no balance. I didn't have much of a balance. There wasn't the proper balance. So ever since then, the fruits of that have been showing in my life. This was back in February of this year, like I said. Now, I just feel like I have a much softer heart for people who are in this kind of situation, whereas before, I didn't really have much sympathy for people like that, because when you're, like some of you guys on if you're preaching on YouTube, or even if you're not, if you know what it's like to be so zealous about preaching holiness and ceasing from sin and whatnot, and righteousness and all that, then it's very easy to become prideful in your righteousness, where you just can't sympathize with anybody who's in a lower position than you, or in a worse state than you, and that's really easy to fall into, even if it's just a little little bit of that attitude that can creep in very easily. So I just want to encourage you guys. That's what happened to me, and I got healed of that. And now, whenever I see someone in sin and they need help, I actually have a soft, compassionate kind attitude towards them, whereas before I had this crust around my heart like, what are you doing? You know, just stop sinning already. Just come out of sin. Just stop doing it. And it's not quite that simple. You can't tell someone say no to drugs and then not give them the explanation as to why and then expect them to follow up with that. If you tell someone say no to drugs, that's not going to help them. So telling people stop sinning, but then not explaining how or why doesn't help anybody. And so I needed more balance. I needed more compassion, more heart of the Lord on the matter. I'm not saying it's not wrong to, feel godly indignation or frustration when you see situations like that. People in sin, especially when they know what to do and they're just not doing it. And they're just willfully continuing to disobey the Lord. But, the Lord really needs to show you whether your attitude is right on this. So, I really hope that encouraged you guys. That's my experience. God bless you.